Hi, welcome back. Today I'm going to be making these Victorian style ornaments. If you enjoy this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much. Enjoy. So for this week's ornaments, I'm using foam clay, which I have never tried before. I've been inspired, however, by a YouTube channel called Inspirations from the Soul, and I looked to see what she had been using, and it was some type of foam clay, so I thought I would try it. And it turned out to be pretty cool, so this is my first experiment with that. Now, one thing that I am doing, you can see I'm trying to put the foam clay in. With air dry clay, you can push it right in and pull it right out, and it stays the way that it was meant to be. But foam clay is a little stickier. So I'm actually going to take out my first attempts and use some cornstarch so that the pieces slide out more easily. I started off trying. I actually made some pieces and then let them completely dry before I took them out of the mold, and that worked too, but then you have to wait until they're dry, and if you want to make more than one of something, it's a little bit longer of a process. Plus they when they dry, they curl up a little, so I found that it worked a lot better to make them using the cornstarch in the mold, pull them out right away, and then glue them fairly quickly. So I'll be making two ornaments. The first one is using the square plastic ornament, and the other one will be the traditional round plastic ornament. The first one's going to be sort of a snow globe, and the second one is going to be holly and a trim. So the first thing I did to make the snow globe was I used this leaf mold, just the leaf parts. Then I'm going to put those on the side. I also made some snowflakes earlier, and I'm going to make a couple more. And I also have made a small set of bells for the square ornament. The round ornament, I'm going to make some trim, and I'm going to make some holly leaves. One thing I'm really liking about the foam clay, and this is probably true of any clay, but if you start making something and it sticks to the mold, or you don't like the way it looks, or it starts to stretch in the middle, you just do it again. And I didn't have any trouble doing multiple tries with the same piece of foam clay. The only important thing was to make sure that I got a good coating of the cornstarch in there so that I could pull the clay out of the mold once it was done. And after the first couple tries, I did start using this brush to brush the cornstarch into the mold instead of trying to do it with my fingers. It made it a lot easier to do. I've also acquired this little clay tool. My husband heard me saying in my previous clay video with the air dry clay that I didn't have any clay tools, so he bought me that. So to attach the clay onto the ornament, I'm using the Eileen's tacky glue. I've seen a couple different types of glue being used. Super glue, or this kind of glue, or probably Elmer's glue would do, but I had this tacky glue, so I decided to try it, and it worked out pretty well. I'm also using a brush to put it on to the back of each piece. So to make the snow globe effect, that's what I'm going to use this piece of trim for, and I'm going to make a circle on the ornament and then put my little snowflakes in the middle. I will put links to the molds that I used and the clay that I bought for this. The ornaments themselves just came from Hobby Lobby. They're the clear plastic ornaments you can buy from them. So I'm going to let that ornament dry, all the glue on it dry, and the foam clay itself dry out. And I'm going to make the molds for the second ornament. So I have this mold that has 3 sizes of holly, and I'm going to use the 2 bigger sizes. So I'm going to make 4 pieces for the trim, and they don't need to be the full length, so I just made them about 2/3, and then I'll cut them off and make a little corner for them to meet at the bottom. So I'm going to cut them using the square end of the clay tool and make sort of a miter joint for them. So each piece will be cut diagonally to make this little arrow shape, and then I'm going to match them up together right in the middle. The foam clay is very light and very easy to make it the shape you want. But you just want to be careful as you're putting it on that you haven't bumped it or pushed it out of place. And if you do, all you need to do is push it back and reshape it. It's very easy to work with. It's super light. So the last bit of clay are these small balls that I created. I'm poking a hole in them with the edge of my paintbrush, and I'm going to paint them to look like berries. So once everything dried, the next step is painting. So the first color I'm going to use is this apple barrel acrylic paint in country gray. And I'm using this as a base coat for the things that I'm going to paint silver later. So the bells and the trim. So the next thing I'm going to do is apple barrel black. But I'm actually going to alternate between the 2 ornaments, the different colors that I paint them. You know, since there's already gray on my paint brush, I figured it'd be easy to switch over to the black without having to rinse off the brush. So I just dab off any excess gray, and then I'm going to start to do the black. And I'm going to paint the trim of the base coat, with the black. I'm starting off with these darker colors in order to help with the antique look that I'm going for these ornaments. So the next color is Shutter Arts Viridian. I'm going to do multiple layers to get a more realistic look, and this is the dark color I'm going to start with for the leaves on both ornaments. And next I'll do the base coat of the snow globe itself, which I'm going to use this bright blue from Craft Smart. So this is the first time I'm trying to paint directly onto these plastic ornaments. And I did use a brush for the Viridian and this bright blue. But what I did later, you'll see I moved to the, pouncers. They're little foam brushes, but instead of painting on, I'm going to dab. But this worked for a first coat. I also added some country gray onto the snowflakes. And the next color is Apple Barrel's Tapestry Wine, which I'm going to use for the berries on both ornaments. Next is Metallic Silver from Craft Smart. And I'm going to use that for the bells and for the trim of the snow globe. And once I had the trim painted the silver, I also took a little bit of black, just a little tiny bit with this very fine brush, and sort of just barely dry brushed some on into the indentations of the bells and the trim. Then I took the foam brush and just dabbed on silver all over the trim. The next color for the leaves was Craft Smart Grass Green. And I did use a brush with the Viridian to get the holly leaves on the second ornament. But everything else is going to be dabbing, basically, except to use the brush to fill in some of the places where I couldn't reach with the foam brush. I also used Shutter Art Red to make some highlights for the berries. And the trim on the round ornament is the metallic gold from Shutter Art. And the next green I used was Craft Smart Apple Tart. And at this point, I let everything dry for a day. And the next thing I did was I took some Shutter Art Yellow Ochre and mixed it with white, about 1-to-1 proportion. And this is what I'm going to start off with the background on both pieces. And I'm using a paintbrush to stir it, but I am still going to use the little foam brushes to dab on. So I'm trying to get a look that's going to be sort of a parchment-y look, that old paper parchment look. So this is going to be a few experimental colors. And as you can see, the yellow ochre is pretty yellow when you mix it with the white, but it does make a nice background once I add all the other colors. So it is a good first layer. So again, at this point, I let everything dry. And once it had dried, I took the Shutter Art Chocolate, and I'm going to mix it also in a proportion of 1-to-1 with white. And I'm just going to dab it over the yellow ochre mix. And trying not to cover up all of the yellow, but let a little bit of it show through. Next, I'm going to dab on some of Shutter Art's Sky Blue, just over the blue part of the snow globe. And I'm going to do the snowflakes as well, a little bit, because I will be covering them up with another color later. And I let everything dry fully. And I'm going to do another layer of lighter blue. I'm just going to take the sky blue and mix it with some white in about 1-to-1 proportions. One thing I'm finding with doing these multiple layers of different colors is that it makes it look a lot more realistic and interesting. And the next background layer is another mix of the chocolate brown and white. And I'm trying to get something fairly light. I'd like it to look sort of like parchment. And I just kept mixing in white to get something a little lighter to dab on. Next up is some Martha Stewart Pearl metallic paint that I'm going to use for the snowflakes and add a little embellishment onto the leaves and the silver parts and the bells. On the leaves on the round ornament as well. And once I had that last layer of brownish dried, or at least mostly dried, I just added a little more white to the big mix of brown I had to make an even lighter brown color. And the next layer was just an even lighter bit of brown, just to give it a little bit of highlight on the very top layer. The last thing I did to the snow globe, though I didn't film it, was while the paint was still wet, I blew a little bit of very fine white glitter to give that snow globe-y effect. So these were a little more work than some of my other projects, but I love the way they turned out, and I'm definitely going to be doing a lot more stuff with this foam clay. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!